Hi guys, just thought I'd record this quick tip for you. So I was playing around yesterday with Xpresso, and I came up with this cool little rig which allows you to offset the hue of lights to the opposite hue on a colour wheel. Something that you might want to play with, but if not, it's a cool way to control lights using field forces in Cinema4d. So here's a little matrix of lights that we've got going on. These are just an RS area light that's cloned into an array, and then we have a shader effector. The shader effector is basically controlling the LEDs. Here you can see they're all on. It's a render view, and so I'm just turning them all off with a solid layer and then controlling them with two box fields, which you can see here. And so these are just animated around just on a spline, and so you can see the icons here are changing colour too. That's just a little bit of Xpresso mapping from the field colour into the icon colour in the viewport. Not quite sure why the viewport still shows the effector as pink, but it does. So let's get into kind of how I managed to do this. So something to bear in mind here with the new Cinema4d 2023 is there'll be some kind of fancy colour management going on under the hood. This is because of Aces, and so you can see here my colour wheels are not quite opposite each other. So I'll just come back to that in a second. So if you bring up your project settings and go to colour management, if you just change that to basic, then you'll see that these kind of match. So all that's going on here is kind of big and scary, but it's not. This is just a little rig that I created for the user interface to turn my LEDs on or off, and then the exposure of the LEDs, because when I came to render this for the actual project they needed to be a lot brighter, but for the purposes of this video they need to be underexposed for you to kind of see the full colours in the render. And then this is kind of it. So basically, to manipulate these colour swatches, we need to break the colour out into HSV. So all this is a couple of constants which are down here, and so they're going into reals to vector, which basically combines them all into one attribute, which we can chuck into this colour space node. And so this converts a hue saturation value to RGB, and then this then converts them, this then pipes them into a vector to reals, and then into the actual field effector. So this is essentially this property here in the colour remap, and so you can see, yeah, that matches the purple. And so this initial thing was just me kind of creating something to be able to input to debug, and then the rest of it is kind of doing more of the same process. So it splits it out again into HSV, and so we can see the results of that hue saturation value. Important thing to note here is that the hue is going from 0 to 360, so we have to have this checkbox checked on a colour space node. And so all I'm doing is using a math node, and then this is adding 180 to the value of my initial hue value, which we can see here comes out at 270. So you can see that's there. So if I just switch these two around for a second. So this is the primary driver colour, and then this is the one that's been modified with the offset of the 180 degrees. And so after this kind of bit of manipulation of the maths, we then pipe it all back into the other field's colour value. So here these three boxes down at the bottom are basically this initial input, which is your hue saturation value. So also I've changed Cinema to use values from 0 to 1, because normally I work in an ACES workflow. So you can see here, if I adjust the saturation to 0, that this value here goes down, and same on the linked colour value. If I go to 5, it'll go to halfway, and then just same again for the value. So if we go to 0, it goes black. For the purposes of this, we'll just keep everything at full so we can see full colour. So if I put in 0 here, I go to red, and we can see this is offset, and it matches the whole way around the colour wheel, which is cool. Something to note on this, I can go out of bounds if I go over 360, and suddenly everything goes black because I'm out of range essentially, so that's something to note. And then to control this in terms of how the linked field doesn't go out of bounds, because if we're at 360 in the primary colour and we're adding 180, then we're going to go out of bounds with this. So there's a little range mapper here which essentially is using modular, so anything over 360 it will reset, so it will count from 1 upwards again rather than being 361. So that's a cool little function with the range mapper. I did try to do the actual maths in the range mapper to offset the hue at 180, but it just wouldn't work, which is why we're doing it with a maths node here. So that's just a constant value, which is 180, simple. Adding that to our initial value, whatever that may be here, and then you can see our result is 180, or it's 270 here, and it updates. So yeah, cool little bit of Xpresso to be able to control colour by changing from RGB to HSB. And so for the final thing, I kind of just unlinked these boxes down here, and so I just keyframed my colour here. So if we keyframe that, let's change it to, I don't know, yellow or something. Oh, that's the wrong one. Name these right up front. So yeah, we should be able to now keyframe this. Yeah, there we go. And so you can see this colour will also be changing as the opposite hue. And then going back to the cloner, in fact the shader effector, so to make this look a little bit nicer, I added like a decay over the top, so we get a little bit of a fall off as the lights trail around. So you can kind of see that effect. For better results, I'd break this out. So I'll just do that quickly. And then you can always guarantee that you've got accurate results. Just fire this up in my render view. So yeah, here you can see that we've got the colour changing, and this one's the opposite, and then you've got this nice fall off. And then if you wanted to make this look a little bit nicer, you could add a little bit of blue and really get things going. If I start to then crank the exposure up again, you can get yourself a nice little effect. So yeah, quick tip for offsetting hue values using Xpresso and controlling area lights using field effectors in Cinema4d and Redshift.